Now I think we're all seeing why.
Thank you. Senator Blackburn.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I'm so pleased. I joined my colleague from Florida in saying it is time that we have this hearing. All across Tennessee, I hear from people every single week that say what was really going on in the White House and why would no one say anything when with your very own eyes you could look at any of the footage and see what was transpiring with President Biden. And I think the fact that many of his own cabinet members knew that he was not fit to serve and that there was a cabal behind the curtain who was making all the decisions. It is so offensive to the American people. And it's not something that is a partisan issue. As I talk with Democrats, many of them have lost faith in what they thought was going to be a very moderate Joe Biden administration, and it turned into be the far left Bernie Sanders version of the Democrat Party that was using the Autopen and making decisions and committing our great nation to policies that the American people did not support and would never have supported.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today, we're diving into a recent congressional hearing clip that's getting a lot of attention online, featuring Senator Marsha Blackburn and her comments on the Biden administration, the use of the Autopen, media complicity, and broader questions about executive power. This isn't about left or right. It's about claims that touch on transparency, governance, public trust, and how power is exercised behind the scenes. So let's break down what was said, what we can verify, and where the conversation really needs more clarity. First off, Senator Blackburn raises what's become a recurring concern in certain political circles: the mental and physical fitness of President Biden. She says that people can see with their own eyes that something is wrong.
And I fully believe that because of that overreach and that flippant attitude that much of his staff had toward the policies of this nation, to people in the administration that chuckled about tossing gold bars off the Titanic. They knew they were going down. They knew they were going to be found out. And they probably knew at some point there would be a hearing like today, and the other side of the dais would be completely empty because no one can defend what they did. Mr. Wold, I want to come to you for a moment and talk about something that was really a disturbing revelation from the Tapper Thompson book. And you know, this is part of the thing. Now we're finding out the media was all a part of the joke. They were part of the ruse. They were part of the fraud that was pushed forward. A Biden staffer told the authors that Biden just had to win and then he could disappear for 4 years. That's all they needed to do. And, you know, it is, the following statement was, he'd only have to show proof of life every once in a while. And as I had a Tennessean say to me, when they had actually downloaded this book and read it, and then they said, you know, how stupid do they think we are? And the disrespect this administration showed to the American people. Why is it that the American people appreciate that President Trump goes out and nearly every day is taking questions and answering questions? Is because they have now found out that these staffers were willing to do undemocratic things, as using their term, to keep the president in office, to keep Biden there. They were willing to do undemocratic things, unlawful things. So, Mr. Wold, let's talk about that behavior and how that undermines the faith of Tennesseans and all Americans in our public institutions, because they could see what was happening, but they were being lied to by people in the White House who were probably then running in their office and saying, well, we pulled it off another day.
Yeah, Senator, I mean, this is a theme you've talked about for many years, which is the executive branch is enormous. I mean, there are close to 1,000 employees in the executive office of the president. There are nearly 4 million full-time federal employees throughout the 14 departments that the president oversees. Executive power as accountable to the people of this country really manifests in two ways: the power of the president to remove bureaucrats and to fire them, and to affix his signature to official actions that he undertakes. So when the Washington establishment says something to the effect of, well, democracy dies in darkness, yes, it does when there are staffers, the media, cabinet officials, senior advisors to the president who all create a covering sort of shroud of darkness that obscures who is actually making the decisions. And one other thing I'll just say very quickly, a number of your colleagues on the Democrat side have said, well, there's an OLC opinion here. We don't need to talk anymore. There's an OLC opinion. It says you can use the Autopen. The opening paragraph of that OLC opinion says you can use the Autopen, but only when the president directs that you do so under his decision-making power, right? It is very clear again and again that the president actually has to make the decision. That cannot be delegated to a staffer or an advisor. And there's no indication here that anyone other than staff were making these decisions.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Senator Hawley.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thanks to all the witnesses for being here. You know, the visual, sometimes it really is true. A picture speaks louder than words. It's worth 1,000 words. And here, all you have to do is...
Now, to be fair, this is a concern shared by some across the political spectrum, not just Republicans. There have been moments in public appearances where Biden has seemed confused or tired, which naturally prompts questions, especially given his age. But to claim definitively that he is not fit to serve is a major allegation. So far, there has been no formal medical evaluation released that disqualifies him from holding office. We have annual White House physician reports just as we had with previous presidents, and they haven't made such a determination. If there's concern, the right approach would be more transparency from the White House. The American people deserve clarity, especially in an age where trust in government is already fragile. Senator Blackburn also describes a cabal making decisions in place of the president. This is pretty strong language. The idea is that staffers, not the president, are calling the shots. That leads us to a real constitutional and historical question. How much influence do presidential staffers actually have? The truth is quite a lot. Chiefs of staff, senior advisors, department heads all play key roles in shaping and executing policy. But this isn't new. It happened under Obama, under Trump, under Bush. The presidency is massive. No one person can run the entire federal executive on their own. One specific concern raised was the use of the Autopen. This is a mechanical device used to sign official documents when the president is not physically present to do so. Critics here argue that this suggests Biden wasn't making executive decisions himself. Let's add some context. The Autopen isn't illegal, and it's been used by previous presidents including George W. Bush and Barack Obama. There is a legal opinion from the Office of Legal Counsel, OLC, that says it can be used as long as the president directs it. That's the key part. With presidential intent. So, if the claim is that staffers used the Autopen without Biden's knowledge or direction, that would be concerning. But we haven't seen concrete evidence of that happening yet, just speculation. Another point raised was about media complicity. According to the transcript, Senator Blackburn cites a book by Tapper and Thompson that allegedly quotes a staffer saying Biden just needed to show proof of life occasionally. That's a deeply cynical quote, and if accurate, it deserves scrutiny. But as always, context matters. Staffers sometimes joke. Sometimes offhand comments are exaggerated or misinterpreted. The bigger issue here is whether the press was ignoring obvious problems or failing to investigate serious claims out of political loyalty. There's definitely been criticism, fair or not, that some media outlets went softer on Biden than they did on Trump. Others would argue that Trump invited more aggressive coverage by attacking the press daily. Again, these are debates worth having. But what matters most is a consistent standard of journalistic integrity regardless of who's in office. Senator Blackburn contrasted Biden with President Trump, saying Trump took questions from the press nearly every day. That's true. Trump was highly visible and frequently engaged with the media, sometimes off the cuff. But transparency isn't just about visibility, it's also about truthfulness. Trump's interactions with the press were often combative and factually challenged, while Biden has taken fewer questions, but in more controlled settings. Again, we need to ask, which is more transparent? Is it better to be accessible but misleading or less frequent but deliberate? That's for voters to decide. Mr. W., a witness during the hearing, made a crucial point that should not get lost. The executive branch is massive. Nearly 4 million federal employees report up through 14 departments. The president can't personally oversee all of it. This raises valid concerns about accountability. How do we ensure that unelected bureaucrats aren't making major decisions without oversight? How do we trace responsibility for executive actions? This isn't just a Biden issue. It's a systemic issue that's been debated for decades. Congress needs to play a stronger role in oversight, and the public needs more tools for understanding who is really pulling the levers of power. So where does that leave us? Senator Blackburn and others raise questions that are worth asking about executive authority, transparency, and trust. But many of the claims lack hard evidence and rely heavily on innuendo, anonymous quotes, and hypotheticals. Still, this hearing reminds us of a core truth. Democracy requires vigilance. Presidents must be transparent. Staffers must be accountable. And the public, regardless of party, deserves to know who is making decisions in their name. This shouldn't be a partisan issue. It should be an American issue. Thanks for watching. Let me know what you think in the comments. Do you believe these concerns about President Biden are legitimate? Or is this more political theater? And how should we reform executive power, if at all? Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell so you don't miss future breakdowns. I'm here to bring nuance to the noise, and that's exactly what we need more of right now. Take care and stay informed.